I'm back. I wanted to use this video to talk a little bit more and introduce myself, as well as talk about where I am in the writing process and give you guys a little bit of a inside look at what it's like starting out being a self-published author by choice. Yeah, so I was a former project / communications manager for big corporations and nonprofits, and I was finally thrown into an opportunity to pursue my dream of becoming a writer. I do have a bachelor's of English with an emphasis on literature, and I do have a master's of communication in digital media. It wasn't as planned as I would have liked. At least my background kind of geared me for this life, for my current state of life, making YouTube videos and being on social media and writing a book. So that's been fun. Though before any of this happened, I had not really delved into my creative writing. Never really delved into creative writing before this. You'll never find my blog posts. They're coming with me to the grave. Or social media. I was a pretty casual social media user before this. Took a break for about a year, but now I'm on social media kind of full time as hopefully kind of like a job is how I'm working this out. Find me on all social media platforms now, pretty much. Instagram, Twitter, here on YouTube, TikTok is the latest one that I've started to get on for book talk and such. Is such a big part of the author culture now, so that's what I've been doing. So about 6 years ago, I had this idea for a story, and I wrote it down on a note in my iPad while in a coffee shop on crutches with a broken foot. It's not necessarily pertinent to this story, but anyway, I put down the idea until about a year ago. I picked it back up for National Novel Writing Month in 2022, and I got almost nowhere with it. What I did get, however, was inspired. I got inspired to finally write, to finally do all of this work, to finally put down my thoughts about this story and just kind of see where it took me. I began a year-long journey of writing lore. The following year, for NaNoWriMo 2023, this past NaNoWriMo, I finally had reached all of the planning that I wanted to do, and I felt like I could finally sit down and write the story that I had been planning. My story has 4,000 years of lore in it and 2 developed languages because I'm crazy. At the end of 2023, I finally had a complete first draft. First time I had ever reached having a first draft, a completed first draft of any story. So currently I am in the 3rd round of editing. When I finished the first draft, I went through and I did a designated line edit of myself and big content edit for the 2nd round. And then I wrangled in my sibling and one of my best friends into reading the entirety of the book. And then now I'm in the process of getting an editor. I'll talk about that in a little bit. So yeah, I highly recommend wrangling some people into reading your work, who are also willing to give feedback. So I'm very grateful to the 2 of them for giving such good feedback, but I highly recommend doing so if you have not already. For finding an editor, I used Upwork. I have used Upwork before as a creative, so I kind of knew the platform and I knew what I could expect, and I knew kind of how it operated and things like that, but I opted to go for a freelancer because generally speaking, at least in my experience, they were a little more open to things like milestone payments and fixed price versus per word price, which was really nice. A lot of editing houses or editing organizations will charge per word. Basically how it works if you decide to go that route is that you create a post detailing your project, its length, what you're looking for, whether it's developmental editing or line editing. Oftentimes people will submit proposals that dictate that they can do both, and they will give you a fixed price for both. Just depends. Get your story evaluated by a professional, especially if you are in the self-publishing space. Or at the very least, if you can't yet afford an editor or it's really hard for you to find one, it shouldn't be, get a friend who has a very discerning eye. A few tips when trying to find an editor, especially when you're working on kind of a freelance platform like Upwork. Check their profile, see what kind of projects they've worked on in the past, see what their ratings are, see what people have to say about them. Kind of, you can get a gauge also if they don't keep their earnings private about the kind of cost that might be incurred from this. And in their proposal, it'll tell you how much they're going to charge either per hour, or they will offer you a fixed rate up front. It's generally based on the length of the work. So for mine, I found somebody who offered me a fixed price based on the length of my book. Another tip, be discerning. If something doesn't feel right, speak up, because it's your project and it's your baby, and being a self-publishing author means that you're going to have to be the advocate for that work. So it's really important to not be afraid of conflict. And I mean, these are creatives too who are trying to do good work. So generally speaking, they're not there to scam you. Do be aware of scams. Make sure that you, like I said, vet their profile, vet if you can find any information on them, if they do it on other platforms and things like that. Check their reviews and such. But it is important to be an advocate for your own work. Now that I'm getting closer to the actual release of my book, I knew that it was time to start building and connecting with an audience using social media. I gave myself approximately 8 months to start this process. And that's something that I want to remind people of, especially if you're new to this space or if you are a debuting author like myself. It's going to take as long as it's going to take, and it's going to vary by your project, it's going to vary by your time, it's going to vary by the kinds of things that you want to do, especially depending on the kind of work you do with your editor. It's really important for the indie space to produce really polished and really thoughtful work. Do not rush your process. Do not rush trying to get the book out because you think that there is a really harsh deadline. I knew this platform would be a great way to connect with an audience in a way that I hadn't before, and in a way that I know is going to be a growing and learning opportunity. So I think that's also really important when you're starting this process. If you are like me and you don't have an established audience, or you've never been on social media before, or you're not really sure where to start, it's really just a matter of starting anywhere, anytime, any place. Right now I'm filming this on my phone and I'm learning alongside as you're watching this, so it's a growth process for me too. I have my notes for this video right next to me and I'm taking cuts and edits as I need to. You will learn, and it will get better and it will get easier with time. I'm not sure, but I'm sort of making this up as I go, but I hope you'll join me for it all. I'll see you in the next one.